Hi, I'm Nikolai, aka 56Miner, and today we're unboxing our January Basics box. This month, we're highlighting the Derwent Inktense products. We'll talk about how to use them, create a simple abstract design, and I'll share some tips and tricks that I picked up while working with everything. Let's get into it. For our surface this month, we have a custom 4x6 pad of the agave watercolor paper from the Hanamule company. This paper is super absorbent and has a slight tooth to it, which makes it perfect for our custom 6 set of the Derwent Inktense pencils included in this month's box. By using a light hand and holding our pencil towards the back, we can create a very subtle gradient and reveal some of the texture of our agave watercolor pad. The custom colors included in our set include red violet, hot red, golden yellow, light olive, peacock blue, and deep rose. While these color pencils are beautiful on their own, the real magic happens when we activate them with water. Let's grab our 1/2" Princeton Select Lunar Blender included in this month's box and use it to activate our Derwent Inktense pencils. By taking just a little bit of water and a clean brush, we can activate that pigment and reveal the vibrant color of our Inktense pencils. This month, I thought it'd be fun for us to create an abstract design highlighting the different techniques that we can do with our Inktense pencils. Now you're welcome to copy my design or create your own. I focused on loose, organic shapes for mine, and I used an extra sheet of paper to create the nice border around the edges like we talked about last month. As I go in and activate my first layer of that Inktense pencil, I'm making sure to scrub that surface a little bit with our brush because I really want to make sure to activate that pigment, because once it's activated, it becomes permanent on our paper. Now, the Inktense pencils only become permanent when they're fully dry, so it's important that you let each layer dry fully before going back in. I'm going to take some of our hot red and layer it on top of our deep rose in order to create a nice gradient, and because we're working in a transparent medium, these colors will blend together really seamlessly. We can always go over the same color in order to create a deeper, richer tone or to attribute form, just like we did in our tinted graphite box last year in February. When working with our Inktense pencils, I found that the best way to get a nice, consistent, flat color is to go in with multiple layers, allowing each layer to dry and then building up that color. This also helps to reveal the rich purple of our red violet pencil. We curated the colors in this set to be really mixable, so make sure to take the time and explore layering different colors to create new secondary colors. We can also layer our color pencils and not activate them so we can get more of a textured effect like I did with the green. One of the things that really impressed me with the Derwent Inktense line is that once you activate that pigment, it really does act just like ink. Here I'll go in and add a shape right on top of our yellow, and because I've activated that yellow fully, when I go over with our Lunar Blender, I'm not going to pick up any of that pigment. I'll still be able to create a fun green color, but that's going to be due to the transparency intermixing with these two distinct colors. And as long as you let those layers dry before going over with a new color, you can still keep those distinct edges like you see on my circle. Here, I'm taking that deep rose and layering it on top of the yellow, and it's going to give us more of a brick red color. But by going over it a second time, we can create more of a burgundy color. These Inktense pencils are super versatile and a really fun and challenging way to explore color theory. Let's grab the final item in this month's box, a turquoise Inktense pan. Using a wet brush directly on our pan, we can activate that pigment and create a really dark, rich turquoise color. We can also dilute this out by adding a little bit more water to a more softer, transparent value, which is perfect for monochromatic work. And because our pigment acts a little bit like ink, we can use a wet on wet technique by putting some water on the canvas and then dabbing some of that pigment in for a blooming effect. And you can always push that pigment around while that surface is still wet. Now that we have a good understanding of our materials, let's take what we learned and do something a bit more complex. Since the Inktense pigment is permanent once activated, we can actually go in with our pencil first and then layer our turquoise pan on top. This month I thought it'd be fun for us to practice some of our painting skills, so I'm going to go in and sketch out a bottle and we're going to paint it as if it's made of glass. Now you may have noticed in the beginning when I had a few lines on the page, and that was me just making sure to work out my proportion before going in and sketching that bottle. Now I'm not going to worry too much about having super dark lines, or even really having perfect lines, because I'm going to blend all that out with our lunar blender, which will give us a nice green base and push our turquoise a little bit more to the teal side of the spectrum. Now due to the properties of our pigment, it's really important that we let each layer dry fully before going back in. This will allow us to be more distinct with our brush strokes, but it will also allow us to build clear value without it bleeding into the other wet areas. Here I'm starting with my lightest value of that turquoise, making sure to leave areas where the light will shine on the glass empty. These will be our highlights. Due to the transparent nature of this medium, we need to work from light to dark. So that typically means that our lightest or brightest highlight areas are going to be the areas with the least amount of pigment on it. With that first layer fully dry, I'll go in with a slightly darker value of our turquoise pan and use it to emphasize the darker areas. We use the same process in similar mediums such as watercolor, and it can take a little bit more time, but it does allow you to get really subtle and beautiful gradients. Now depicting glass can be very challenging creatively, as you have to keep in mind lighting, form, and structure. So if you just want to relax this month or try something else, try taking some inspiration from our prompt, change. With my paper fully dry, I'm going to go back in with our peacock blue and emphasize some of the darkest areas of our glass bottle. Now if you're looking to incorporate a bit more texture in your piece this month, this is a great technique to keep in mind, as that colored pencil does give us a little extra emphasis. But since we're depicting glass, I'm actually going to go back in and activate that peacock blue and smooth out that texture. For our topper, I'm going to go in and add some guidelines that wrap around that shape, and we're going to add kind of a pine cone effect to it. I'm doing this just for a fun stylistic choice, but you can use this same technique to add wrapping lines around any form. This will help to ensure that any pattern or repeating texture that you create will be consistent. With my pencil shading established, I'm going to go back in with our blender brush, and using a fairly dry brush, I'll activate that Inktense pigment. For large sweeping areas, I'll use a little bit more water in order to create a gradient, but for areas like the topper, I'm going to be using a very dry brush, because all I want to do is activate that pigment. I don't want it to run, and I really don't want it to move. I just want it to darken up a bit. Throughout the entire painting process, I'm making sure to be conscious of how my brush is meeting the page, as that'll really affect those lines and shapes that we create. That's all for this month's video. Hope you enjoyed it, learned a few things, and if you post your work online, make sure to use hashtag SketchBoxJanuary. We love seeing what y'all create each month. And if you want to check out any of our previous videos, head over to our YouTube channel where you can like and subscribe. And I'll see you next month.